This is Podsquad. I'm Will, and this is
Lewis,
and we're going to be talking about Death Stranding. Now this is one of Kojima's new games that's been announced at E3 and has had a big impact despite actually only being a teaser trailer and nothing else.
I think it's quite arguable to say that this has been one of the handful of pretty much game breakers.
Yeah, I agree.
This caused the biggest rock because, of course, Sony, they've only just re-announced their partner with Kojima Productions. To then have in the middle of session to have Hideo Kojima walk onto stage and then this whole thing starring Norman Reedus to show up, everyone goes wild because it's not expected.
Yeah. But as you mentioned about Sony's partnership with Kojima Productions, it's actually been stated, Kojima said, that he's not actually having his studio work on it.
Yeah, and that's really interesting.
Because
Kojima Productions recently, they've been teasing a lot of what they're working on, and there was a photo I know of a guy in a spacesuit.
I saw that.
But that might not actually have anything to do with Death Stranding.
Yeah, no, it might not. It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Now, Death Stranding ostensibly seems to be a sort of psychological horror game, really.
Yes.
You can't get much else from that kind of an advert, to be honest.
I think it's key to point out it's not linked to PT in any way.
Yeah, no, that's one of the other things that we know. It's definitely not linked to PT in any way, which is actually pretty interesting. And as we said, it's
it's still Norman Reedus starring. It's still Hideo Kojima. He's directing it and he's designing it. But Guillermo del Toro is not involved.
Yeah, no,
Konami obviously not involved.
One of the things we know about it also is that currently it doesn't have a game engine, because Kojima was touring the world looking at various game engines. He said he might be making his own, things like that. But as of yet, he's actually stated that he is completely undecided on a game engine for Death Stranding and that it's literally just in a concept stage right at the moment. He said that he wanted action to be in it, but he didn't actually want a lot of action to be in it. So it's possible that it will be a lot more sort of scenery style horror, like non-interactive in that sense. So it's all the world around you is causing it.
An atmospheric horror, not an active chasing horror.
Yeah. Now, after this, I've forgotten what the word is now. After this teaser trailer, that's it, was announced, was shown. Kojima then went into an interview about the teaser trailer, along with an analysis of the teaser trailer itself actually happening. And a lot of things were derived from this. The first is that obviously comes from the name. Now, Death Stranding is based on the fact that you see all the marine life and the fish and the animals, stuff like that. Is a reference to, and I'm going to try and pronounce this right, Cetacean Stranding, which is when marine life strands on a shore. This can be anything from in most cases it's a whale that this happens to, and this can be the whale being injured or the whale being killed. But most commonly, and this is really interesting in the whole horror setting, it's actually a whale that gets stranded for one of the other reasons, that then sends out a signal for help, and another whale follows and ends up stranding, which causes a cycle.
I think this is going to be quite an interesting bit. Is, of course, in the trailer we saw that Norman Reedus, he wakes up on a beach and there's that baby. We don't know if there's any serious involvement there because the baby dissolves into oil and it starts tracing around his legs. But if it's possible, maybe that, obviously we don't know who Norman Reedus is playing in this, but obviously the lead character, maybe he's there for a reason, or maybe someone's going to come and get him and gets fucked over as well. We don't know.
No, one of the other things about this Cetacean Stranding and Death Stranding is one thing that Kojima actually said, and this is a direct quote, he said, "It's a stranding for something not alive."
Yes.
And does that refer to, though, in this instance, the baby or Norman Reedus himself?
I mean, it's one thing Hideo Kojima is very good at is being mysterious and cryptic and deceiving, so we won't really know anything about this game for a very long time. Yeah.
The other thing, though, that was noticed and also hinted at was on the dog tags he was wearing. The dog tags is obviously, what is the deal with the dog tags, first of all? I mean, there are so many connotations you can get from just a dog tag on its own. But then also, we might go on talking about this one for a little bit. Also, the fact that what was spotted and also talked about in the interview on the dog tags is there are actually a pair of equations.
Yes, I know there was someone managed to get a high-res image up from Kojima's work profile, which showed a side profile of Norman Reedus' character and his dog tags, and there were several equations lined out on his dog tags.
There are two particular equations that stood out most of all. The first is the Schwarzschild equation, the Schwarzschild radius, and the second was the Dirac equation. Now, both of these are actually high-rate physics equations which relate to mass and black holes. Now, as we're already going for the whole something not alive and stranded and things like that, there's a theory that it might actually be that Norman Reedus' character has gone through a black hole and ended up in this alternate sort of world thing.
Clearly there was some kind of sci-fi-esque influence there, because of course there were those 5 figures up in the sky. So we don't know what they are, but they're clearly some kind of powerful beings or entities.
But not just that. You also saw on Norman Reedus' character there were the sort of electronic handcuffs.
Yes.
Now, the handcuffs in themselves, why was he handcuffed in the first place?
Maybe he was a prisoner, or
and then
we don't know.
How does that link to the dog tags?
Yes.
Because the dog tags may be obviously like prison branding, and he was a prisoner for some whatever reason.
Possibly an experiment branding.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Potentially. But that obviously implies the cipher thing. Then there's the slightly gruesome thing of the umbilical cords everywhere. And that's probably the most off-putting thing about the trailer.
Yes.
In that, obviously, Norman Reedus himself has the umbilical cord to the baby. He had a C-section, which is just surreal. And then with quite a lot of the animals littered around the beach, you can see that they have various umbilical cords, either cut or leading to other things and stuff like that. What does that mean?
There's clearly something sick, twisted going on, and I don't think we're going to be able to find out or be able to talk about anything else now until we finally get some details from Kojima himself or Reedus spills the beans. I think that's all we can really talk about right now. So
there's the final thing I wanted to say though is obviously the larger environmental impact, because obviously it's about Stranding and the beach is grey and the environment is just horrible, and not just that, also the baby obviously turns into oil and there's oil around and stuff like that, which I think might be some sort of criticism towards the environment, which leads me to believe if it's the whole Stranding thing, maybe it's like an After Earth thing.
It airs all the impossibilities in the world right now. It's amazing how much Kojima's trailers can show so much detail yet be so vague at the same time.
Definitely. I'm not usually a fan of horror games, but this, well, we don't even know if it is going to be horror, but I assume based on the trailer it's going to have at least horror
aspects.
But this is something I will definitely follow, and at some point when we have more details we'll have to do another talk. But
definitely.
This is as much as we can do with just a trailer. This was Podsquad and Death Stranding, and tune in for the next part.